Hello, welcome to the Snap UK Week 7 review. I had to remember that one. It's part of the season where it all sort of just merges into one.
You've got it written down on the top of the schedule, Week 7 in big writing.
Yes, I know, but I'm not looking at that, am I? We've got lots to unpack this week, but we get to start off this week with news, and it sort of emerged over the weekend, and Antonio Brown has signed for the Bucs, which at first it seemed it was Brady wanting his way, and now Arians is saying no, it was my idea. So, is this a good signing? Because the Bucs already have a load of good weapons. Is adding Antonio Brown going to help the cause in Tampa Bay?
Yes.
Get them to a home Super Bowl.
I think it really adds because, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin so far have not been very resilient, have they? And they do have injury problems. Chris Godwin's now got a broken finger. Is that right? Mike Evans is dealing with all sorts of issues and struggles to get onto the field. And, Bruce Arians is also a very experienced coach. I'm sure Antonio Brown is not the first slightly eccentric NFL player he's had to manage. Antonio Brown was on the Steelers for a long time before he went a little bit crazy, So there must be a player in there to be got out. And if Mike Tomlin can do it, then you'd expect that Bruce Arians can also do it.
Look, undoubtedly there's a player out there. He's a talented player. He always has been. I don't think that's ever been in doubt for the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. So I think from a player point of view, Gary's right. Like, if they're paying him minimum wage plus a few incentives. He's obviously there's obviously some sort of connection between him and Tom Brady. Like, Brady helped bring him to New England. Now it feels like Brady's been the person behind this move. And to Gary's point, it makes sense where Mike Evans hasn't been 100% fit. Chris Godwin's missed a couple of games. We are kind of dealing with with COVID, and you never know when it's going to strike and what player group it might take out. So having strength and depth makes sense. So from all that point of view, it makes complete sense, and you wouldn't complain about Antonio Brown joining any team. The thing is, he's still got a criminal charge up against him. He's still got to go to court for sexual assault. And I think, as Bruce Arians said, like if he's found guilty, the NFL are going to deal with it. The Buccaneers don't have to. So I think from their point of view, that's set. I think it's if Bruce Arians can manage him the same way that I think kind of Belichick had started to, and actually manage the personality and ensure that Antonio Brown knows where he is in the pecking order, because he's not coming in as a number one receiver. If he's coming in, if he's level with Scotty Miller, then I think that's a little bit harsh on Scotty Miller, to be honest, because I think he's played really well. So he could be coming in as a number 4 receiver. He could quickly move up that rank, but I think he needs to know where his place is on that depth chart early doors, and not expect to be getting 5 to 10 targets each week.
Does it though smack a bit like? Does it remind you of Keegan's Newcastle, who had this team that were building and building and building, and eventually, sort of, he added Asprilla into this mix, and it just collapsed in on itself. Is that the issue that they could have here? That suddenly another ego, because they've got Brady, no matter what you say about him, he's got an ego, Gronk, these big players, and adding Brown to that could be a potential sort of a spark.
All I would say is most of these players that are there have not won a Super Bowl ring. And this year and next year could be their big chance to win a Super Bowl. And I think that reins people in a little bit. You know, a lot of them have gone for not a lot of money. They've gone for one purpose, haven't they? You know, Fournette's not there earning loads of money, and he was kicked out of the Jags because of his behavioural issues. So, you don't know, do you? Is my question.
I don't think there are that many kind of prima donnas currently on the Bucs squad. Like, I don't think we've heard of. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've heard of any kind of like anguish over amount of reps players get or whatever it might be, or how many targets. There's no OBJ on this team. There's no up until now. There's no kind of Le'Veon Bell making noises about being traded away or anything like that. I think they've got quite a settled dressing room, and that's because they know that they've got someone like Brady who has been there, Super Bowls 8 times, won 6 of them. And it's kind of like, okay, whatever he says goes. I think if Antonio Brown falls into that mold, then, and kind of like I said, he accepts his position, then fine. I think it's all good. From a ethical point of view, I don't necessarily agree with the move. I'd be disappointed if the 49ers assigned him, just because he's got a history. There's no smoke without fire. People that haven't signed other players because of that history. And yes, Antonio Brown is a good player, but I'm happy he's not on the 49ers. So that's my personal point of view, though. If he does well at the Bucs, fair play to him, but I'm not going to be cheering him on.
Nope, me neither.
He's right up there with Kareem Hunt in my view, and Tyreek Hill to a point.
Yeah, there's a whole heap of players in the NFL that I can't support. But yeah, as well, I should also mention Des Bryant is signed for the practice squad of the Ravens. Just we'll see what happens there, but he's still a name people talk about. Should we get on to the games?
Yeah.
So game of the weekend. Cardinals 37, Seahawks 34, a win in overtime. The Cardinals didn't lead until they won the game with a overtime goal kick. I can't remember the exact words, but yeah,
field goal.
That's
what they're traditionally known as.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long.
Been a long week.
It has already. So, did anyone watch this one? Because it was a cracking game.
I watched the first drive. I saw a couple of amazing catches by Tyler Lockett. I saw Russell Wilson look domineering and thought, this game's over. And I went to bed because it was late and I had to work the next morning. And I'm disappointed that I had to work the next morning and I couldn't stay up to watch this game because it turned out to be an absolute corker, didn't it? I think, we're living in a time with where there are no defenses. And I think this game summed that up beautifully. Whilst there were interceptions, there wasn't a sack until overtime. The first sack was in overtime, and then the second one came quickly afterwards, which pretty much ended one of the Seahawks' drive, which just says like the quality of these pass rushes, and that says it all. Like, you can score points on the Seahawks, you can score points on the Cardinals. It's always going to be a shootout. I thought Kyler Murray looked amazing. I thought Russell Wilson really looked very good as well, even though he did throw 3 interceptions. A lot of those were under some pressure. They both run for multiple yards. They had great games in terms of fantasy. The 2 standout receivers, Tyler Lockett and DeAndre Hopkins, had amazing games. DK Metcalf was pretty quiet. I thought Patrick Peterson had one of his better games. And this was just a fun game to watch. And it summed up the difference between, you look at this game versus Eagles versus Cowboys. This was an entertainment game, the NFC West. It summed up the strength of the NFC West versus the NFC East, where neither team seemed to want to win that game.
Yeah, no, I can only agree. I'd say something at the NFC West. I've got a lovely stat for that later, but as I say, Kyler Murray, first only quarterback to throw 3 passes and overcome a fourth quarter deficit of 10 points versus the Seahawks since. Michael?
Not a clue.
Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, which was held in Phoenix. So, he's in. Like Lockett as well. For fantasy wise, I think it was 53 points, wasn't it? Or
Gary's one of yours, isn't he?
Gary's gone.
Gary's gone. I've got a very strange look on the screen.
A lot of fantasy points. That's fine, but can we get on to the fact that it doesn't matter how good Russell Wilson is if you can't defend?
Yeah.
Completely. Yes, they're very, very good. Yes, they're a Super Bowl contender. But right now, they're incredibly fallible against any team that can stop Russell Wilson, which is what happened. Picked Russell Wilson off 3 times. By the way, he hadn't thrown consecutive games with fourth quarter interceptions in the last 28 games. So they did well to pick him off. But I think this showed the Seahawks up for what they are, which is, yes, they're letting Russell cook, but it's more through necessity than through a sudden decision that that's the best way to go, because they haven't got a defence. I think they're ranked 30th overall on defence. That's pretty appalling, considering this team was built defensively.
Originally, it was.
I think you're going to see them get upset in games where teams just manage to get enough pressure or enough picks. You're going to see them get upset, whereas other weeks they'll really hammer somebody because they just managed to outscore another bad defense. So, the game was great. I've watched the highlights, but I don't see if there's anything to be impressed about with the Seahawks, to be honest. Yes, they're a good team, but in this game, you've got to put the Cardinals away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, their defense has been bad the whole season. It will be interesting to see what happens next week when they're playing the 49ers. I think the 49ers are coming off 2 really good games. Their defense is missing a lot of pieces, but they're still getting pressure on the quarterback. Because if you can get that pressure on Wilson and you can prevent him escaping the pocket, he is fallible. Like every quarterback is fallible if you get pressure on them. But this, you're absolutely right. Like they're gonna get found out more than once. You can't rely on a team being able to score 30 plus points every single week and being able to just out. And I think you mentioned kind of Newcastle United when we were talking about the Bucks. This is Newcastle United. We're gonna win 4-3. This is what the Seahawks are at the moment. Screw the defense. We're just going to let Russell Wilson try and win it for us, but he's going to get found out.
But he might. He's going to. They're going to lose games. I think but in the regular season, I think they're going to be fine. It's the postseason that I worry for them. But in the postseason, you can't afford to have. Well, you can have that attitude, but you are playing more with fire there. So. Regular season, I think they're going to be completely fine. Seahawks, they're offensively, as you say, they're looking great. It's just you hope as a Seahawks fan, you'd hope Pete Carroll's got some ideas up his sleeve for how to improve that defense.
Yeah. Don't forget this was a divisional matchup, though. You say they'll be fine. You lose a couple of games like this in your divisional matchup, then you start slipping into the wild card places, and then bearing in mind the Cardinals clearly don't look that bad. The 49ers are probably going to be okay. This division's really quite good. Like, you can soon get edged out just because you haven't managed to hold teams to 30 points.
Well, if you think back to last year, obviously, last game of the regular season, they lost to the Niners and, obviously had to go a different route in the playoffs and didn't go very far, did they? So it does become very important when you get to the playoffs, what seed you are. Massively, isn't it? And I think the thing is that division is just, 4 teams could still come through that division. It's a really difficult division.
I was trying to work out if it's mathematically possible for all 4 teams to make the playoffs. I'm not sure it is, and then I had to start doing some work again.
It is possible. All 4 could make it. Yeah. And it's a very real possibility when you have some awful NFC divisions.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring my stat forward actually, because as the last division in the NFL, which had every team with over four or more wins after 7 games.
AFC North.
It's the NFC East back in 2016.
Wow.
And so the team that wins that division, of course, goes out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
but
you look at it.
Just look at your future. 4 years in the time, you'll be struggling to get to 2 and 5.
But you look at it, like the 49ers are bottom of that division. They're 4-3. That's 2 games ahead of the Eagles, who are top of the NFC East. 2 games. That's a clear distance.
Yeah. No, we'll get on to the NFC East later.
Yeah. Apparently, we're leaving that for last because there's nothing to talk about. What was good? What was not interesting. Good to see, like towards the end of the game, was the hustle from Larry Fitzgerald. Like at the end of every play of the Cardinals, he was the one grabbing the ball, running to the line and putting it down and getting everyone up there. I mean, he showed like why he's still there and the qualities that you have in a leader. He was the one that's pulling that team together. He's going to be a massive loss when they go, but I think they obviously are developing more leadership. But you literally can't buy that experience. It was like, just if you go back and watch the highlights, don't watch anything else. Just watch Larry Fitzgerald at the end of every play at the end of that game, and you'll just see pure leadership.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times this season. He's
joined Jerry Rice as the only 2 players with 1,400 receptions in the NFL this weekend as well. So there you go.
Well, there's no argument about Fitz going to the Hall of Fame, is there? We can't get on our high horses about that. Like we do Phil Rivers.
No.
There's no interest in that.
The DK Metcalf tackle whilst I dropped out a signal or not?
Yeah,
we haven't.
We haven't.
You're right.
It was
surely that was ridiculous. Like literally chased the guy down for about 80 yards, and then tackle.
It was 100 yards. Plus, because he had to run around.
Yeah.
I think he was tracked at something like 22 miles an hour at
22.64 miles an hour, travelled 114.8 yards, and it was brilliant, but it's completely insignificant because they didn't win the game. So that is why it's not worth as much notice as it's getting, because it didn't actually stop.
I'll tell you what though, DK Metcalf, we got told couldn't run routes and couldn't run in anything but a straight line last year, so I'm not sure it is insignificant. And I think what they're talking about in terms of DK Metcalf being one of the best receivers in football right now is what some people are saying, but certainly one for the future. That does show his attitude to some extent.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It does show his attitude. I think it's a really
important thing.
Yeah. If you've ever listened to Mike Florio during like kind of the combine season, he always takes the mick out of the 40-yard dash. He's like, no one ever runs 40 yards in a straight line in a game of football unless something's gone really right or something's gone really wrong. And that was a case of something's gone really wrong, and he chased the guy down. But I completely agree with Gary. Like, I was going to talk about kind of attitude in the Cowboys game, and just the fact that he didn't give up that play just showed great attitude. And that comes from coaching. That comes from building that environment. And Pete Carroll's just an expert at that. And other kind of coaches who aren't named Mike McCarthy can also do it, but other coaches can't.
I guess as well, we're going to have a case where a guy makes a run and he basically he's become now a meme, and
it's already started.
he's effectively it's sort of killing his career. Almost, it's almost becoming like the butt fumble, and this seems to be the exact opposite of it. You came onto social media on Monday morning. It was all about DK Metcalf, not about the fact that Tyler Lockett got 3 touchdowns or the defense is shit.
Yeah, and actually we should also mention some of Tyler Lockett's catches were amazing, like up there with kind of the best one-handed catches. The first one, like the first catch he had, we just laid out one-handed, pulled it in. Just astounding like that. It pains me to remember that Tyler Lockett was once on the 49ers squad and we let him go. So yeah, we can move on from that.
Okay, well, let's move on to the 49ers.
Nice segue.
Who got a convincing win against the Pats, 33-6.
Over to you, Michael.
It's all gone wrong for Cam.
Go on, Griff. You can lead off on this one.
Where to start? Okay. I think there's definitely some weight behind this fact that since Cam had COVID, he's not been the same player. So I wonder whether they're playing him out of necessity because Hoyer and Stidham are clearly not good enough, and basically he's not 100% fit. I'm willing to believe that based on the fact that the first 2 games of the season, he was one of the best quarterbacks each week. So I suspect there's some residual issue from the COVID. So I don't think all is lost. I think the problem is the same reason we got rid of Brady, which is we don't have the same O-line we need and we don't have enough weapons. So regardless of who your quarterback is, they're going to struggle. And therefore, once your quarterback is not 100%, even if it's Cam, you look like a terrible team. Julian Edelman clearly isn't fit and probably is too old. And name 2 other wide receivers on the team.
Harry
Bird, Jacoby Myers. Like, these are players who've got, 20 catches between them. There's nothing going. Our best receiver is James White, who had next to no yards. And that isn't even the biggest problem. We're talking about offense, and the biggest problem is our defense is appalling. It'd have been better off with the 5 of us trying to stop the Jeff Wilson train. Like, it was terrible. Jim sent a text halfway through saying the commentators are wanging on about setting the edge, and we were just watching Jeff Wilson run straight through the middle. You can set the edge with as many players as you like if you're not going to stop the one guy running with the ball through the middle. So it's actually the defense for me that is more of a concern because I think Cam will get better, and I said anything over 8-8 in a season like this is good enough. I think he'll be fine, but I don't think you can replace the players we've lost on defense. There's too many of them off with the opt-out. Was it 7 out of our 8 players were defensive players? And it shows. There's no communication. There's no confidence. Gilmore looks, like a rookie half the time. And I think Belichick knows that. You saw the way he approached Cam when he benched him. I think he's basically saying, yeah, okay, like, this is going to be my bad season, and then I'm going to go winning.
The question is, it's Belichick is the GM as well, isn't he? So,
yeah.
So who is this on? Because they don't have any weapons, and what they have on offense is very much an aging team. James White is not at the start of his career.
No.
Edelman's not at the start of his career. Cam's not at the start of his career. Brian Hoyer's not at the start of his career. So you're one to sack coaches. We've talked about you trying to sack Sean Payton a number of times. So, like, if this was anybody other than, and I'll get Belichick has won everything over and over and over again, but how has he allowed the organisation to get into this position?
I don't think I would ever advocate anybody being GM and head coach. Bill Belichick gets to be GM and head coach because he's Bill Belichick. There is no other reason. And it is no secret that, especially when it comes to wide receivers, he's done a terrible job of drafting. You look at what the Steelers do every year, and then you look at what the Patriots do, there's no comparison. He needs someone to help out picking up these players. At the same time, it's not until next year that we get any cap space. John will refresh my memory, but I think it's 64 million in cap space next year.
65 million quid.
Oh, 65. Yeah. So I think they are taking the hit. They weren't sure what was going to happen with Brady. They're taking it on the chin this season. Like I said, 8-8, they'll say okay. And then they'll retool and go again with some new players. I don't see what else the plan could be.
Do you think Kraft will look at that and go? He'll look at the whole situation and think, is like genuinely, and we've touched it. Is Belichick the right man to be running the front office? And it's going to be nigh on impossible to bring anyone else in terms of like bringing in a GM. Like Belichick's always going to be reporting into Kraft. So even if a GM comes in or whatever vice president of football operations, or whatever they want to call it, there's always going to be a bit of a disconnect. But to, like Gary's point, like, okay, yes, you've lost Brady, and that's a massive loss. Like, no one, unless you're the Packers and you've gone from Brett Favre to Rodgers, or you're the 49ers and you've gone from Montana to Steve Young. There was always going to be a little bit of a backward step. But it's the fact that and yes, COVID has played a part. But there is nothing on this offense, and there's very little on the defense. And yes, Stephon Gilmore had a bad game, but he had a bad game because he's trying to mark wide receivers for a long time because Jimmy Garoppolo had like a load of time in that pocket. And if you give any quarterback that much time in the pocket, then they're going to find a wide receiver. New England only got 2 hits on the quarterback through the whole game, and it's just not enough. So, is there? Well, I guess my question to you, Griff, is is there any way that the Kraft looks at this and goes, is it time to have a complete refresh? And yet, Belichick has done a great job, but you know what? You're 68 now. How much longer are you going to go? I can't bring in someone to be a GM alongside or over you, so we need to kind of talk about this. Or is it a case of we'll just carry on with Belichick and see what happens and hope for the best? Because at the moment, if he was Bill O'Brien, he would have been sacked by now. It's terrible. Shit.
Yeah, clearly he's not Bill O'Brien. This is our worst home defeat since he took over in 2000. Yeah. First time we've lost consecutive home games since 2008. So I think he's bought himself a little bit of time. In fact, probably as much time as he likes. I'll refer you to Tom Landry, who ran the Cowboys from 1966 to 1989, I think.
Yeah, the late 80s, yeah.
He didn't win anything. He didn't win anything for the last 15 years. But because he'd won and he was the head coach, he was the guy that had made them famous, he was given basically everything he wanted until Jerry Jones came in and kicked him out. And the only way Belichick leaves, other than by his own choice, is if Kraft sells the team and someone else comes in, because that's the only way you can clean house. And at the moment, it shouldn't even be a discussion. Belichick could do this for 3 seasons before anyone could say, okay, I think something's got to change. We might not like it, but he clearly can because he's Bill Belichick, not Bill O'Brien.
Well, Arsene Wenger's another comparison, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he did very much the same thing. But whether that is the right thing for your team, because Belichick did win those Super Bowls with Brady,
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be able to turn. He's supposed to be able to turn any player, any defensive player, with his schemes. You've lost 3 out of the last 4 home games as well. You lost your last game at home last season as well. Yeah. So, it's not just a single season problem, is it? Because you didn't win the Super Bowl last year, and you weren't that great last year.
We weren't great last year. I think if the defensive players that are missing with COVID, not with COVID, but adopted out because of COVID, if they were there, I don't think we'd be in anywhere near as bad a shape. So when they let Brady go and they didn't retool the offense, they weren't planning for that to come along. No one was. But if you look at the teams impacted by COVID, say what you like, New England had it worse in terms of the opt-outs than anyone else. No other team lost more than 3 players. We lost 8. And it's big name players. No Hightower, no Chung. You take them out of any team, it's like taking 7 players out of that Steelers curtain from the 70s. It just isn't the same.
Is it like taking Nick Bosa and Dee Ford and DeForest Buckner out of the Niners, is it?
I think it's probably more impactful because at the Niners, you've got an offense.
I also think, you mentioned Hightower there, and I think the commentators mentioned it during the game as well. I think that's the biggest loss. Yes, Patrick Strong's a great leader, but Donta Hightower, he's criminally underrated.
Yeah.
And he's massively important in terms of organising the defence on the pitch. He's effectively the coach on the pitch, but also stopping the run. And like we said, no one on that Patriots defense could stop the run on a Sunday. Everyone running the ball consistently is getting over. Well, Jeff Wilson got 6.6 yards average. Jermichael Hasty 6.5 yards average. Carl Juszczyk got 4.5 yards.
Yeah.
Even Jimmy Garoppolo got 4 yards on his one run. And anything over 4 yards is bad for a defense because it's free runs and you've given up a first down. So that's the biggest issue. That there is issues. You're right, Griff. There are issues everywhere, but not being able to stop the run and not giving the cornerbacks the backfield enough, or giving them too much time effectively to kind of have to mark the players is where the issue is. Because now you can not only run on the Patriots, you can probably pass on them as well if the defensive rush can't get to the quarterback.
I don't think that New England are 2-4 if the defensive players are present. I think it's probably the other way around. I think it's probably 4-2. I think that is a far bigger problem than a slightly unwell Cam or an untooled offense, because they planned for, don't worry about the offense, we'll keep teams to 20 points or less like we did for most of last year, and we'll sneak into the playoffs and then retool when we get the cap space. And now they've been hit on both sides of the ball. There isn't a plan for this year.
Unless I'm remembering last year wrong, there was a big thing about you not playing very good teams till about week 6 last year, and your defense went from being the number one defense in the league to being kind of middle of the pack. So I think
overall defensively,
probably about 4th, I'd have thought.
2nd.
Yeah, but everyone was going crazy about it at the start of the year, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
it was good.
From the first 8 games, they didn't need to take an offensive snap.
Yeah. We were lucky with the schedule being front-loaded with easier teams last year, but at the end of the day, it was still a first-place schedule in the NFL, which is how the NFL is divided up by where you finished the previous year, and you can only play the teams you play against. So if you're going to say this year's schedule is harder, that's just another hard luck story for this year's Patriots. No one likes to hear that the Patriots have been unlucky, and I get that, and that's fine, and it doesn't even feel like it needs to be made as an excuse, but when you total up all the issues, one after the other, the ones that you could have predicted and the ones you can't, the defensive issue is the one you couldn't predict, and it's still the biggest problem.
Yeah, and the other issue is if you are a team that can't stop the run, your defense is going to be on the pitch for a long time, and that was one of the stats they kept banging on about was the time of possession. You look at possession for 49ers, it's 38 minutes, 21 minutes for the Patriots. That's putting a massive workload on that defense. So you've already got a defense which hasn't got the quality. We know that. But now you're asking it to be a deep defense because you've got kind of sub players in who are less in the quality, even more so. Yeah. So it's it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? So
I think let's give Griff a break and I think move on to Shanahan.
Well, I was about to say that, and they probably come up against the worst opposition they possibly could. Shanahan is a genius when it comes to the running game. We were saying, Jeff Wilson had an amazing game. Unfortunately, he's gone into injury reserve with a high ankle sprain. But we were saying earlier, it doesn't matter who you put into his running attack, it seems. It can be Jeff Wilson. It can be Mostert. It could be Matt Breida last season. Jermichael Hasty, we mentioned. Jarrett McKinnon. It really doesn't matter because, Romo did call it right. It's they set the edge to start off with, but then that then spreads the defense out, and it's bang, straight up the middle, 4 yards, bang, straight up the middle, 5 yards, bang, straight up the middle, 10 yards. Okay, we'll guard the middle, bang, on the edge. And it's every single play. And everyone's saying, Garoppolo had a good game. Yeah, one of the intercepts was just pushing it a bit too far. Yeah, Garoppolo had a good game. Any quarterback is going to have a good game when the running game's working that well and you're playing against a defense which is gassed.
I remember reading a quote from Shanahan, and he was like, "Ideally, what I want to do is run. I want to have 30 running plays.
Yeah,
in a game." And I looked, and with 5 minutes to go to the first half, I think they'd won 22. It was just working. And Jimmy throws the interception. The next 5 plays, run. And you're like, it's the scheme is just incredible.
And it's exactly what Kyle Shanahan's dad, Mike Shanahan, did at Denver. Yeah, they had Terrell Davis, but they also had a ton of other running backs who were getting 100-yard games quite consistently. No one's ever heard of Orlando's Gary. He was 127th pick in 1999. He had amazing yardage. He got hurt, but it's because of that scheme that you can just slot in any running back. And I was listening to a podcast earlier today talking about the amount of running backs that are going to come into the draft next year. It looks really good, and you don't have to pay a running back anymore. And this is going to be a long, more medium to long term thing where you're going to see schemes come up where you're going to have like a running back committee. It's terrible for fantasy, but it's good for if you're supporting that team. You're going to have like 3 or 4 running backs that just slot into a team and can get 4.5 yards average every game, because that's basically how you're winning, how teams are winning at the moment.
And as well, like, you're not picking, McKinnon probably the highest earner, your running backs, but everyone else is like, Mostert came from from a practice squad somewhere. So did Breeder. It was they've all just found
Jermichael Hasty was an undrafted free agent, and he looked amazing.
Fantastic.
So I'll tell you what, though.
Anybody want to take a stab at the last starting quarterback for the Patriots, who then went on to beat them under Bill Belichick?
Bledsoe?
It was in 2003.
Was he with the Bills, or was he with the Cowboys at that point?
The Bills.
Bills.
Yeah.
They beat them 31-0. They've only had 3 losses of over 27 points in Belichick era, which was this game, and when they lost 41-14 to the Chiefs with Alex Smith. And that was also Jimmy Garoppolo's first game in the NFL.
I also like the conspiracy theory that Belichick wants to just lose both games to the Jets to make sure they don't get the number 1 pick.
That would be brilliant.
That would be amazing. Just to stuff their season.
I don't think you can.
It's going to be a struggle. I think you'd have to lose like 3-0.
Yeah.
Can you kick off goals? Is that allowed?
Let's move on, because we've been quite a while on this. Well, it's quite fun to kick the Pats while they're down. But 24-27, Steelers Titans. Steelers. I think a few guys here picked Steelers for Super Bowl. They are looking particularly good. Quite
only unbeaten team now, aren't they? Now that Seahawks
only unbeaten team. Yeah. For a while as well, it didn't look like the Titans could get anywhere near them. But they got a bit closer towards the end. But the Steelers were fantastic.
Well, one thing I find a bit strange with this Titans team is they seem to not use Derrick Henry quite as well as they should in the first half before games get away from them. And then when it comes to the second half, and they've been trailing a little bit in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and then they give the ball to Derrick Henry.
This game was an anomaly, because the first half, they just couldn't get Derrick Henry in the game because they were up against the best defense in the league, and I don't think it's the only game he's struggled in the first half.
You are right. He's in my fantasy team, and I watch his points, and I sit there worried every week in the first half, and then he gets a touchdown normally. And I know he's against tiring defenses, so I get that.
I was going to say, do you not think that that's the biggest thing? Like, by the time you've banged your head against those players for a half, they're ready to give up.
Yeah, probably. But then Shanahan's scheming running backs open at the start of a game, isn't he? So, what can Titans do just to try and, I think burn a bit more clock, hold a bit more possession at the start of games, because, they were behind in this game. They were behind last week as well. So what can they do to try and control a game slightly better? That would just be, from watching them the last few weeks, how do they do that as a winning team, as a team that wants to go far? Because that's the sort of thing that will help you in playoff football, isn't it?
I think this week, what they were too slow from giving it to Derrick Henry and trying to run up the middle. There was no subtlety to it. There was, there seemed to be an unwillingness to give it to Tannehill to get it thrown about, probably because of who they're playing against. But yeah, I think if Rabel can sort out his reticence to sort of give it to Tannehill, I think they'd be better off in the playoffs. But yeah, if they do the same again, they'll lose.
If you look at their first quarter this week, they went punt, then they had the 70-yard touchdown to AJ Brown, and then they went punt, turnover on downs, punt, and then they got a touchdown. No, that was the AJ Brown one. Sorry, but my point is, they were really struggling at the start of that game, and I know Pittsburgh are an amazing defense, but yeah, it just makes me wonder on how they're managing that game and how they're managing that workload, and can they scheme things to make that more balanced and just manage the clock better? I don't know, just something I picked up on.
Yeah, I agree.
Some of the hits that Pittsburgh were pretty immense. I think there was one I think I commented on our WhatsApp group where Derrick Henry was on the goal line and he just it was like I don't know who was the brick wall at the time. I think we both commented that either one of the brick walls got injured because I think the defender had to go off afterwards. But you could hear it on the TV, like you could hear the impact, and it's one of those impacts where if you were playing it on Madden, your controller would have been shaking because
mine would have been smashed.
Yeah.
I'd have assumed it was a fix.
But there were hits going on that the whole time as well. Like that Pittsburgh pass rush is amazing to watch. Like it's just good fun. Like if you're not playing against it, obviously.
I think Bud Dupree's in a contract year, and I think it's very much showing that he's in a contract year because he is astounding this year.
Yeah, and it's going to be like between him and TJ Watt, it's a battle to see who's going to get who's going to be in the running for a Defensive Player of the Year award, because those two are well up there with Aaron Donald and, dare I say, Fred Warner from the 49ers. It's that defense is just amazing. But the Steelers did this against the Eagles a couple of weeks back. They took their foot off the gas and they let Tennessee back into the game. And I think that's something. Let's face it, the Titans could have equalised right at the end, right? Gostkowski missed that final field goal attempt, which would have put it at 27-all. But the Steelers need to figure out how to finish off games. They did it last week, but they didn't. There's been a couple of times where they haven't done it. And yeah, the Titans are a good team, but it's a couple of times where teams have just kind of crept in it, and you just wonder if that carries on through the season. It's not going to be long before the Steelers get their first defeat.
Yeah.
It's the same old. They play to their opposition. So when the opposition is bad, they play poorly. They played well because the Titans were playing well, but that is just as much credit to the Titans that you dragged the best out of the Steelers, because I don't think if the game had gone the other way, we wouldn't be sitting here going, "Oh, it's a massive upset." But the Titans are almost as good, and like Gary said, maybe they didn't quite utilise Henry properly. I would say maybe the Steelers over-egged it a little bit with Big Ben because he threw 3 picks. Let's not forget that. It's like it wasn't a stellar performance from him.
Yeah, and some of them were bad picks as well.
Yeah,
right? There was one that was into the end zone, which was just terrible.
Yeah, something had to give, and ultimately it was Gostkowski missing a 48-yarder. Well, his season's been very up and down, so it's not a surprise. But when that's what it comes down to between two undefeated teams, I don't think you can moan either way.
No.
Big Ben, 150th win with the Steelers. 2 other quarterbacks have got 150 wins with one franchise.
Brady.
Brett Favre.
It is Brett Favre with the Packers is the other one.
Nice. Well, let's move on. So, another cracking game. Bengals 34, Browns 37.
Can I start with the good stat from this one?
Go on.
When was the last time a team scored 30 points or more and didn't punt and still lost the game?
1996.
Nah.
It has never happened. Teams were 50-0 coming into this game, and teams are now 50-1 thanks to the inability of the Bengals to stop Baker Mayfield.
Do you know what? I'm gutted because this was my pick, wasn't it, of the week?
It was, yeah.
And I thought it was, it was so unlucky, and it should have been right. That defense, if you're Burrows,
what defense?
You'd just be gutted, wouldn't you? Like, just give me 5 minutes, just one drive. I'm only asking for one drive a game. Like he could, just get. I don't know what he needs to do, but how many times does he need to go down the other end? He is scoring points and keeping them in every single game they've played in this year, and he's got nothing to show for it apart from endless Bengals records for a rookie season. First rookie quarterback to throw for over 400 yards. He's got he's already tied second with the most over 300-yard games in a rookie season, I think, isn't he already?
Yeah.
So he's just throwing for crazy records, and it's getting him absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And the fourth quarter in this game was amazing. It was touchdown, 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 touchdown. And Baker Mayfield threw 3 go-ahead touchdowns. It was also the first game with 5 go-ahead touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Everything was... And he completed 22
I was going to say,
23 attempts after starting 0-5 with a pick on his first pass for the second week running.
And I think it was 21 passes in a row as well before he threw it in completion.
Which was also a record for a Browns player.
So, I mean, but that's... I don't want to put it on Baker because I'm fast losing confidence in any of Baker Mayfield's abilities. But on the other side, like Joe, you're right, Gary. Joe Burrow is playing out of his skin week in, week out. Like, I don't think we've seen a rookie quarterback who is more of a pocket passer than kind of say Lamar Jackson play this well for a long time. Like, he's everything that the Jets wanted Sam Darnold to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
that's cool. And you look at the cast around him. Yeah, he's got some good receivers, but they're not like stellar receivers, are they? I mean, Tyler Boyd, AJ Green back in the day was not anymore. Tyler Boyd, AJ Green, T
Higgins is looking like he could be.
Yeah, exactly. But that's again, it's a rookie wide receiver. He's not working with a cast of receivers that are amazing, like Tom Brady is in Tampa. That offensive line is also dross, is the nice way of putting it. So they have to fix the defense, but they have to also invest in that offensive line as well. But for a number 1 pick, he's playing out of his skin, and it's great to watch.
Brilliant.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, an amazing catch right at the end. He's a rookie wide receiver. He came in for OBJ, who is out for the rest of this. OBG. OMG, OBJ is out for the rest of the season. So goodbye to Beckham for your fantasy team, Griff. But Donovan Peoples-Jones looked good at Michigan. Like, he was one of the wide receivers at Michigan when they did the All or Nothing series, who looked really good. And I think he went for quite late in the draft, 4th or 5th round. But he looks really good.
One of my questions is, how is this Browns defense not getting any better? Because you look at the personnel, and individually there's some standout performances over the last 2 years. But why, as a unit, are they not holding teams to less points? Because they should be by now, shouldn't they? All of that draft investment.
Coaching. Must be.
You look at other teams, whether it be the Redskins. Like they've invested into their defense. Oh no, sorry, the football team.
The football team.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's been too many years, but they've invested, and like their defense is keeping them in games. The Browns have got amazing personnel. They're delivering nothing.
On paper, yeah, you're right. They've got amazing personnel. There's only one player that's properly playing on that defense, and that's Myles Garrett. He's got 9 sacks on the season already. The rate he's going, he could genuinely break the sack record. But he's the only one that's kind of racking up the sacks and actually playing well. Like, we've not seen much from Denzel Ward. We've not seen much from any of the rest of the offensive line, really. Olivia Vernon's there. Sheldon Richardson is there.
Coaching.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes down to the fact that who's the head coach there now? They have
Stefanski.
Thank you, Stefanski. He's an offensive-minded head coach. So he needs a strong defensive coordinator there, and I think probably someone stronger, because you're right, they're not producing. They're giving away too many points. Like the Seahawks, they're giving away too many points. And this week, Baker Mayfield was good enough to get over the hump. Most weeks, Baker Mayfield isn't Russell Wilson. So this is still a 5-2 football team. Let's not forget.
Can you tell me the one and only other quarterback to throw 3 go-ahead touchdowns in the fourth quarter of a game ever?
Ever.
Stafford.
I will promise you can't tell me, but it's
Jeff
one of those
Garcia.
that you think Brady must have done it, or Matt Ryan, or
Swarmer.
Well, it's got to be a team who's bad enough to be behind each time.
I'll tell you the team and the year. It was the Raiders in 2009. They beat the Steelers.
Jamarcus Russell.
No.
No, I can't remember.
No, I can't remember.
It's in the past.
You might not even know when I tell you. It was Bruce Gradkowski. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Everyone knows I famously don't. I don't live in the past. I live in the future. If I'm famous for one thing on this podcast, it's that.
What I was getting at with that is Baker could become insignificant like Bruce Gradkowski if he doesn't play consistently. And this is the problem. Like, he was brilliant in the second half. He was absolute turd in the first half. And he will get discarded at some point if he doesn't start being consistent.
Yeah, you need consistency from a quarterback. You can't have the up and downs.
I don't know, but we're going to go up and down the league here, and there's such inconsistent quarterback play throughout the league. It's not just on Baker, but
it's mostly on Baker.
But okay, we'll go to the Raiders 20, Buccaneers 45. Bucks really do need a standout wide receiver, don't they?
I'll ask the question now. Are the Buccaneers today the best team in football?
No.
No, clearly not.
Clearly not.
Clearly not the best team in football. No, the Chiefs are clearly the best team in football.
Chiefs and Steelers, I think, are ahead of them.
Yeah, I'll take both the Chiefs and Steelers ahead of the Bucs.
I would take this Buccaneers defense over the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, I would take the defense over the Chiefs.
I would take Tom Brady over the Steelers right now because this O-line is brilliant. So I don't know. I think they're right there now. I think
they have the potential.
Right Super Bowl.
They have the potential to be great, but I'm not sure that we've seen enough against enough good teams. You know, this Raiders team just flip-flops between results, doesn't it? You know, it really does. Like, you can't judge any team when they play against the Raiders. Like, you just don't know which Raiders has turned up. You know, I don't think you can take too much from this and turn it into something bigger than it is. You know, are the Bucs definitely better than the Raiders? Yes, quite clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Raiders have a bit of an issue with their defense and their pass defense? Yes.
So I'll tell you how much issue they've got. They've allowed 30 or more points in 5 out of 6 games this season.
Yeah, exactly.
Their defense is right up there with the Falcons. It's terrible.
Then you take arguably the greatest passer of all time or quarterback of all time, exploiting key weaknesses in defences, and you give him Rob Gronkowski and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and whoever else you want, you know, Scotty Miller, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, and you say to him, go and destroy that defense. Like, you know, it's a bit like saying, you know, the Bucs just turned over, I don't know, the Jets by 30 points. Are they the best team in football? No, they're not the best team in football. Like, that doesn't mean that. It means that it gave them an opportunity to build more relationships and it will make them better through the rest of the season. It doesn't make them a better team than the Chiefs now. If you put the Bucs against the Chiefs now, I think 18 times out of 20, then I don't know why I didn't say 9 out of 10 times. You know, I think the Chiefs win.
I wouldn't say it's that far apart. I'd say that you could call that tie 5-5 if you're going to play 10 times. I don't think the Chiefs' defense usually is anywhere near as good as the Bucs' defense.
I think the Chiefs in Kansas is better.
I think the Chiefs' defense is massively underrated.
Yeah, I think
they have way more turnovers than people give them credit for.
The coaching in Kansas is better. I'd still take the Kansas offense over the Bucs, and I'd still take the Kansas. More importantly, the Kansas quarterback over Tom Brady. Tom Brady is playing very, very well. The last 4, I think he's won 4 on the bounce now.
Yeah.
No, 2 on the bounce. I mean, he's lost to the almighty Bears. Let's not forget that. But like, he is playing well. I would say that the Bucs are probably the best team in the NFC at the moment because we've picked out 2 AFC teams as being better than them. I don't think that you'd put them up against against the Seattle Seahawks. I think that's a really interesting match, and I think the Buccaneers would win because they've got a defense, and the Seattle Seahawks, as we mentioned earlier, haven't.
And if you take the Chiefs' defense this week, Mahomes didn't win that game for the Chiefs, did he?
No,
not at all.
So that's what I mean. This Chiefs' defense is massively underrated.
Yeah, look, the Chiefs' defense is good. I'm just saying, I think the Bucs' defense, especially the line, I just think it's better. I think every week you'll see the Bucs are getting better and better and better, and their ceiling right now is not known.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is definitely Bruce Arians' best chance of winning a Super Bowl, and I kind of hope he does because I really love the guy. I think he's an amazing coach. Gary's shaking his head; he doesn't agree, but he's produced some of the best as an offensive coordinator. He's produced some of the best quarterbacks and some of the best results in terms of kind of winning. And also as head coach, he took the Cardinals to the edge of the Super Bowl. He lost out to a really good Packers team. I'd love to see Bruce Arians win a Super Bowl, just like I was happy to see Andy Reid win a Super Bowl. I'd rather it wasn't against the 49ers. He's one of those coaches.
I can't take Brady's face. His whiny little face.
I his whiny little voice. Brady wins. I mean, but in some ways, it's an interesting experiment putting Brady on a different team. But how, I guess the question is, the offensive line in Tampa is playing really well as well. And you can't. We mentioned all the things that have gone wrong with the Patriots, and it's like the complete opposite in Tampa. Like the Patriots haven't got anything on defense, and they got nothing on offense. Tampa have got so many pieces on offense.
They're loaded,
and they've got so many pieces on defense. You're right. That defensive line is amazing, and Devin White is playing out of his skin at the moment.
I kept very quiet at the beginning during your Antonio Brown discussion piece because I wanted to save it for here. I think this is an absolute bonehead, stupid move. He won't last to the end of the season. He won't get along with the league. He may well be locked up for sexual assault or battery or whatever else done. Why risk what is clearly brilliant chemistry to bring in Antonio Brown, who's been nothing but a diva since he left the Steelers?
Because it costs only a maximum of $2.5 million.
Why
they've got the space? Because they're playing fantasy football, aren't they? This whole thing is just making a mockery of the whole league. Can Brady win with the best players that never won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years? Of course he fucking can. It is literally like a mockery of what the whole setup of this league is supposed to do. They shouldn't be able to afford all of these different players, should they?
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's bullshit. And of course they're going to win a fucking Super Bowl with his whiny little voice.
They are.
And it's going to drive me mad, right? And Antonio Brown is going to score the winning touchdown. And everyone's going to say it's a masterstroke. Oh, how did they decide to do that? How did they decide to take a 5-time Pro Bowl player, 3-time All-Pro, or whatever he is, to go and catch balls from Tom Brady? It's madness. Of course you take him. And if he's a dick, you just cut him, don't you? Because it costs you nothing. So, it's a risk to nothing. And if the league kick him out, you don't even have to pay him. Well, I'm being serious. I get what he's saying, but it's absolute, they've gone, right, Tom, come and win us the Super Bowl. You can have whatever you want, yeah? And we're going to talk to whoever you want and say, this is only a 2-year plan, guys. If you're towards the end of your career, you've got your money. If you are at the start of your career, you'll have won a Super Bowl and you can go and earn your money. So, let's just play fantasy football for 2 years, guys. Let's just do this. That's what they've done. It's just a risk worth taking.
Do you think that this team would be as good as it is if we weren't going through kind of the COVID situation? And my point there is, we chatted a little bit about it with Nat Coombs last week, where we said, the whole lack of practice is affecting defenses more than it's affecting offenses. Yes, you do have to have chemistry. A quarterback has to have chemistry with his wide receiver. But when you've got kind of 3 or 4 receivers, and I include Gronkowski in that, who obviously Brady has got chemistry with, when you include kind of 4 receivers in that, you don't necessarily need that kind of exact timing. What you do need is kind of a defense. And would Tampa be scoring as many points and be winning as many games if defenses had more of a chance to kind of get on the field and practice. And okay, the Raiders, like, it's a poor defense. Whatever. I think even if they had all the practice in the world, it would still be a poor defense. But there are other teams that they play where you could probably say, like the Saints, the Panthers, the Broncos, even the Chargers to an extent, and the Packers, we could say if their defense had more time to figure out things without COVID hanging out them, would the Buccaneers be as good? I think with everything they've got on their offense, and to Gary's point, the fantasy football option, this is their best chance. Everything's kind of like come together for them, and this is probably their best chance of winning the Super Bowl. And they probably won't have as good a chance of this next year, providing COVID goes away.
I think the work was done last year on the defence, isn't it? You come into this year with a strong defence, and you don't have to have that time that other teams have had to do. But yeah, I'm keen to move on because we are going quite long.
Well over,
and we've discussed.
Just before you move on, I will point out I don't think it makes any difference at all about teams having time to learn on defense. They only lose when Brady gets sacked. Because the answer is, if you get to Brady, you can win the game. And if the O-line holds up, they will beat you. And that's it. That's your answer.
But you only get to Brady if he has to hold the ball long enough. If your wide receivers are getting more available because your cornerbacks haven't had the chance to walk the routes and practice in a real life situation, they're not going to be as good as what they would be if they had that opportunity.
It makes no difference.
It makes a massive difference.
The league has got so much tape on Brady. He's playing exactly the same as he did.
Yeah, they've got tape of Brady, but they haven't got tape of Brady playing with Chris Godwin on Mike Evans.
They know what the routes he's going to run. It's the same game plan. It's
the same game plan, but instead of 5'0" Edelman, they've got a 6'5" massive all-pro wide receiver.
That is the answer.
You do have to get to Brady, but he holds the ball longer if the cornerbacks are better practiced against the wide receivers. And the cornerbacks haven't had that opportunity to practice this year. Like, they've had minimal opportunity to practice. So naturally, the wide receivers are getting more open, which is why we're seeing probably a few more pass interference calls, and we're seeing much more better completion rates from a lot of quarterbacks. And I put in Brady in that box as well. And that's because, those wide receivers are getting open quicker. He can get the ball out of his hand quicker. Ben Roethlisberger is getting the ball out of his hand quicker than he ever has. And that's not a young quarterback being with lots of kind of muscle. Like, that's an Asian quarterback who looked pretty average 2 years ago.
To avoid having a 3-hour podcast, I'm going to move this on to the Chargers 39, Jags 29.
You've missed out. Oh, hang on. Go on.
In all fairness, we can catch some time up here. Justin Herbert's the real deal. The Jags
Minshew shit.
Horseshit.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, honestly, I don't care whether Gardner Minshew is starting under center. I don't know. Their alternative is Mike Glennon. So you're watching Gardner Minshew for the rest of the season. But it was about time that Herbert and the Chargers won. They've taken the right quarterback for them in the draft, and it's a good team move.
Absolutely. Yep. I think he's playing amazing. Look forward to seeing more.
Yeah. James Robinson. James Robinson's very good for
everything
the
you
Jags.
needed to know from that game.
James Robinson's looking good as well. But other than that, the Jaguars' complete rebuild.
Chenault had a reasonable game as well after being quiet for the last couple of weeks.
But Jaguars
move us on.
Jaguars having rebuild off the field and on the field. Move on.
Yeah. Texans 20, Packers 35.
Turns out Aaron Rodgers is good.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this annoyed me. I needed him for 1 week in fantasy, the only week when Russell Wilson was on a bye, and he got me 2 points. And this week, 25 points, 4 touchdowns or whatever it was. 5 touchdowns, was it? 4, 5?
4. It was 4.
Ridiculous.
He just doesn't like it.
And by by half time as well, he'd got most of those. Ridiculous.
Devontae Adams had an amazing game as well.
Oh, he did.
Devontae Adams, I think, is something like he's tied for the most receiving yards or the most receptions in Packers history, and he's tied with himself and one other wide receiver. He had 13 receptions, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And thank you very much, because about that time he turned up the fantasy game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to laugh here because I know that in Gary's other league he's got Lamar, and on his bye week, which was this week, he had to play Cam.
Welcome to my world.
So he's having the worst week, having the worst luck on buys. Absolute worst.
Cam scored me negative points before he got pulled out of the game for Stidham to come in and throw another interception.
But yeah,
If it makes you feel worse, Cam scored negative points for me this week, and Odell Beckham scored nothing because he got injured, and I still won my fantasy game.
I won one of them, yeah, but it does make me feel better that you suffered as well.
No Aaron Jones as well for the Packers this week. Jamal Williams,
19 carries, 77 yards and a touchdown. Looked all right.
Yeah.
Did you see JJ Watt's interview? It is along. Someone asked him. So, what do you make of Aaron Rodgers' performance? It's like, it's really good. What do you think was the reason why he was so good today in terms of like how he performed? He threw the ball well. Receivers caught the ball. And that was it.
Well, that Texans team, I don't know where they move forward. They've paid Watt however much money they've paid him, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson's been paid 150 million or whatever it is, not far off of what Mahomes got. They've got very little draft capital. They've got very little cap space, and they've got just acres and acres of issues. And some of those key players must just be going, I'm going to earn a lot of money, but I'm going to be really, really depressed for like 5 years. Like they're going to be having as soon as COVID's done, like Deshaun Watson's just going to go crazy just to have some fun because he is having absolutely none on a football pitch.
Yeah, we've said it before, haven't we? Out of the Texans and the Falcons, those two jobs where both, the GM and the coach jobs there, I would go Falcons every day, twice on Sunday, just because you're right. The Texans have got so much work to do with so little capital. Anyway,
and
just before you move on from the Texans, he got lost in the shuffle of the Hopkins trade, but David Johnson's having himself a fairly nice season. He's got nearly 600 scrimmage yards already, 4 touchdowns, I think. Like, he's doing everything you could ask for a guy who didn't necessarily ask to be mixed up in that horrendous trade. So I just think it's worth pointing out that...
Who else is he going to give the ball to? Who else is he going to give the ball to?
Has he got Johnson?
Yeah, has he got 57 receptions? Did I miss that?
He just looks for Johnson anywhere, doesn't he? Like, he tries to put his balls where the Johnson is and hope it delivers for him. He's got two Johnsons to aim for.
And Will Fuller, to be fair, is doing his bit as well. Receiving touchdown in 5 straight games. The only other Texan to do that is Hopkins. So it's not like they've got nothing. It's just that the reason Bill O'Brien isn't there is because he's led them down a blind alley.
Yeah, I could see Will Fuller being traded out of there just so they can get some some draft capital. I think they need to give a GM something to work with, and that's going to cost them something in terms of players or whatever it might be.
Well, Twitter was all abound with, from after his interview, basically, is this the last performance for
he's
JJ
too expensive.
Watt? He's too expensive. You can't move on. But Anyway.
Where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Realistically, who's going to take on that contract?
No one. No.
He wouldn't leave anyway. He's the face of the franchise, regardless of what.
Anyway,
right, go on, John.
Last one before break. Rams 24, Bears 10. Monday Night Football. A defensive showdown, mainly because Chicago rubbish on offense.
No, I think you're wrong. The Rams' defense is just really, really, really good. The Bears' offense is terrible, but the Rams' defense has allowed 3 points or fewer in the second half in 6 out of 7 games this season. And they're 30-0 when leading at half-time since 2017.
They are some lovely stats.
Yeah.
But the Niners, and I don't think anyone thought our offense got us to the Super Bowl last year. The Niners beat the Rams. And Nick Foles has the longest streak for at least one interception. It's 6, I believe.
Yeah.
He's got more interceptions than touchdowns since he came in. He's taken the team from over 300 yards to under 300 yards of offense per game. The Bears are not as good as some people in my right-hand corner are trying to suggest they are. And
still 5-2.
5-2, soon to be 5-4. So I just think they're still a long way away, the Bears. They have so little on offence. They really do. They are not a balanced football team. And yes, I do think defence goes a long way to winning championships, but this season less than it has done in the past. And certainly you can have a great defence, but if you have so little on offence, you're not going anywhere near that deep in the playoffs. If you think about last year's Niners, yes, they weren't like the Chiefs' offence, but they were still exciting and they were still varied, and you still had to think about what they were going to do on offence. Whereas with this, you just stuff the run-up of the Bears and you just let Foles throw it too many times. He'll turn the ball over and you will win the game eventually. The Bears team is not good enough. It might well make the playoffs because the NFC is not as strong as it has been some years, but they won't go very far.
Yeah, I completely agree.
They're like the anti-49ers at the moment because that's their fourth consecutive game with under 65 rushing yards. That's less than a Daniel Jones run.
Yeah, but they've come up against this, like to Chris' point, they've come up against probably one of the best run defenses in the league. And last week, yes, they lost to the 49ers because the Rams came up against one of the best rush offenses in the league. The Bears' offense, I completely agree, is awful. And it's why right at the beginning of the season, I said the Bears aren't going to go to the playoffs. Now with a 5-2 record, and yeah, they've got a hard run over the next couple of weeks, but they've got the wins under the belt. They're the fifth best team in the NFC on their record. They stand, and they're in a division where the Vikings are terrible and the Lions are 3-3, but realistically, no one really expects them to be there. And the other divisions within the NFC are terrible. So the Bears are going to go to the playoffs. You're right; they're not going to go deep in the playoffs because they're not good enough. But they've got 5 wins under the belt, and you can't take that away from them. From that point of view, they're a top 10 team in the NFL.
Welcome back to part 2, and from the shoddy to the ridiculous. Falcons 22, Lions 23, and I'm not going to lie, I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday laughing at Todd Gurley accidentally scoring a touchdown.
Every time they showed the replay on Sunday night, I chuckled myself, and I still chuckle to myself now.
I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
it's not the fact that I think it is everything. Like, he tried so hard not to score the touchdown. I think it was momentum that eventually carried him over. When he did go over, it was the fact that all the Lions defenders turned around and said, "Yeah, touchdown!"
He was almost like writhing around on the floor, wasn't he? Like, mate, you're in. There's no point trying to shuffle back. You're like, that's a touchdown.
Never see. I mean, I just don't know what to say. It's such a Falcons thing to do this season.
I saw something earlier that said our defenses in the NFL so bad now you can't even accidentally not score.
The tweet from the Falcons Twitter handle was brilliant. It was something on the lines of, "Yes, we know. Please don't at us." Yeah. We know.
We should point out, whilst mocking Todd Gurley, that basically, I think it was 2 years ago, he did this twice in a season for the Rams when he ran and fell at the goal line. So it's not like he didn't know what he was doing. I genuinely think he didn't expect the Lions to tackle him. 2 players did. He put his foot down and they just let him go. And all of a sudden he got this momentum. And yes, it was funny, but ultimately it's not like the Falcons didn't need the points. They just needed to be able to get a stop. And that's where the failing is with this team. They can't stop anyone. That's every game this season, 300 passing yards they've allowed. It's absolutely bonkers. To get on Todd Gurley's back, besides the fact it's funny, is just ridiculous. Because his job is to score. He's got 77 touchdowns from scrimmage since 2015 when he was drafted, which is the most in the league. Like, he's a scoring machine, if nothing else. And you asked him to fall down, and he tried, and it went wrong. But just stop the pass to Golladay.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, he scored an accidental touchdown, and it was very funny. But it wouldn't have been as funny if the Falcons just stopped anything. And I think we have to give credit to Stafford and the Lions team for the fact that they marched up the field in less than a minute. Did they have any any timeouts? They might have
no
one.
timeouts.
No timeouts.
The ball.
Yeah.
They
So
scored
from that
the touchdown to tie it, didn't they?
Yeah,
with
exactly.
2 seconds on the clock to Hawkinson.
Yeah, I mean, from that point of view, you're right. The Falcons' defense have let them down. Like we were saying with the Bengals earlier.
Yeah.
Get a stop.
One stop. One stop is all you need. And it's not like Matt Stafford's been brilliant this season. This was easily his best performance in the last minute of the game. 36th career game-winning drive behind only Drew Brees since 2009. Which, but I said to John at the time, this is Stafford. He is made for this. Hurl it down the field. And the fact that they let Golladay take that catch 10 yards out was just insane.
It was still a brilliant catch by Golladay. And the impressive thing is still the speed of mind from the Lions to get there and spike the ball. Because in the past as well, I think it was against the Falcons, they got caught out.
With a 10-second runoff.
And then with a 10-second runoff and everything like that. So, no. I mean, God, if I was a Falcon, Golladay catches that ball, I'd just kick it out the fucking stadium. Just take the penalty. Fuck it, who cares?
Well, the problem is, they did get a penalty, didn't they? Because Amendola got done for taunting. So their point after to win it was like a 45-yard point after.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
Fair play to Prater because he just missed a 46-yard field goal as well. So, they got it right. And I don't know. I don't want to be the guy that says, I think the Lions are improving. But I will go back to our previous reference of what the Bears are doing on offense. And I think if the Lions played the Bears this week, I think the Lions win. I think Stafford's starting to get into the groove and the Bears are going the other way. So right now, the Lions could easily finish second in this division.
They've got a hard game against the Colts. But then they play the Vikings, and that is a win.
That's a win at the moment. Have to play the Lions, the Packers twice, the Saints. That Bears team is going to get beaten up by the end of the season. The bottom is falling out there.
I will say we kind of touched this a little bit with our interview in that last week. So I think the Lions are one of these franchises that are going to give Matt Patricia a bit more time, and they are going to give the front office there a bit of time, because there are some shoots of this is starting to look a little bit better. It's not brilliant still. I think they'll be lucky to get into the playoffs, but there's still a chance. They're still there, and with a couple of extra pieces, I think they really could be there. I think the defense is starting to play for Patricia, and we haven't seen that in his first 2 years. You're starting to see them actually put more effort in and actually kind of produce some goods like this. The Falcons. The offense has never been the issue of the Falcons. It's been a defense. Falcons only scored 22 points, and that's quite low for the Falcons this year. They kept both Jones and Ridley to under 100 yards. Okay, Jones got 97 yards. But the Falcons have scored 25, 39, 26, 16 against the Packers, 16 against the Panthers, but 23. This is a decent score. I think that there are signs of the Lions could be becoming a good team. I'm not saying they are, but I think there's optimism there, and I don't think we've seen that for a while.
And I think the Lions, what we have to remember is they are not a winning franchise, are they? They have no large history of being, the top dog. And I think I do wonder if there had been fans, whether there would be more pressure on Matt Patricia at the start of this season. And I think it's going to help him massively. Now, just as much as I think we're seeing the rookie class this year outperform, because, there is no, I know they're used to crowds in college and everything, but there's less media, there's less pressure, isn't there, generally for everybody. And I think there'll be certain coaches that will get extra time. And I think that's going to help Matt Patricia.
Yeah, I completely agree. Anyway.
Well, let's move on to Saints 27, Panthers 24. No Michael Thomas again for the Saints. He's got a hamstring injury.
How big a worry is that? Not that he's got an injury again, but it just seems like he had an injury, and then he had a fight, and now he's got another injury, although I'm suspect on that.
They're trying to trade him.
I think the jinx of being on my fantasy football team has struck the Saints again. he could be on his way out.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they're going to see what they can get for him in a trade. I don't know whether it's because they want the draft capital or whether he's just made some sort of fuss. He's kicked up about something. He's still not the star on the team despite his performances last year. Whatever it might be, he's had this fight in training. Maybe they've just decided, okay, like we can win without you. We are winning without you, so you can go. I don't know.
Mm.
It doesn't seem likely that he's been injured again. It just feels like one of those, right, like we won't play you. We'll just see what we can get.
So then I guess the next question is, what can you get? Bearing in mind that DeAndre Hopkins went for, a second-round pick plus DeAndre Hopkins?
Oh, sorry, I thought it said Deontay Hopkins.
No.
I was like, that's rubbish, brother.
Yeah. So bearing in mind he went for a second-round pick plus David Johnson, I instantly think it should be a first-round pick, but the league gets crazy at this time.
I think a second-round pick. I think, we look at the wide receiver class that came through last year, and in the second year's class that came through the year before.
There's another good one coming up as well.
Exactly. Do you need to go and spend that much? I think people
Stefan
value their
Diggs was
draft
first. Yeah.
I think high-value draft picks are getting valued higher and higher these days. Unless you've got a bad GM.
Yeah, Stefan Diggs was a first-round pick. And
I think the problem is teams would be reluctant to give up a first-rounder for a player who's just getting paid.
Yeah, and he's got a big old contract now.
And I just think they wouldn't give that up. And I suspect the Saints want a first-rounder. And I don't know who would give them that and take on the contract. So a second-rounder, yes, you're fairly likely to get that. Whether that's value for him, probably not. But if he's being disruptive, you move him on and take what you can get. It would be It would be an odd season to see DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas both get moved on from their franchises.
Imagine if the Packers ponied up and they're like, right, we're gonna have Devontae Adams and Michael Thomas and Aaron Rodgers.
Wow. The Browns paid a first and a third for Beckham.
Yeah,
there are teams who are willing. Browns aren't going to do it now. They've got Beckham, but
Colts.
I was about to say, wouldn't you just love to see the Colts just think, sod it, let's pony up?
Colts would be a good one. Dolphins, they've got a couple of first-round picks next year.
I'm not sure you should use the Browns as an example, only on the basis that it hasn't really worked out.
and they've been traditionally bad for a long.
I'm saying, I see what you're saying.
But they spent a first and a third on a bloke who,
it's not been good value.
Similar contract, and was coming off injuries. So
he paid for that contract in shirt sales, though.
Yeah. And but Michael Thomas, I'm sure if he moves to the white team,
he's not Beckham. He's not Odell Beckham.
But I'm saying if he moved to a team that haven't had a player like that, he could be. He's not Beckham, but he could be a major shirt seller, a major moneymaker for a team that doesn't have a Drew Brees as well.
I think at the Colts with Ty, that would open up so much more space for Ty. That would be if and the Colts have got loads of cap space, haven't they? They did.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
So with Philip Rivers' inability to throw the long ball, those short to medium slant routes are just going to be manna for heaven for both of them.
And then you get Ty a bit more free every now and again. Brilliant.
Anyway, before we move on from this game, can we discuss how good Teddy Bridgewater is?
We haven't talked about the game yet.
I know, but can we get to the fact that even though they lost, Teddy Bridgewater is looking incredible this season?
Yeah, he's looking brilliant.
275 yards a game he's averaging. He'd never gone above 224 yards a game before this season. His quarterback rating is nearly 100 average, and it's like, I don't know what else they could have asked from this deal to take him on. I think I was a little bit reticent because he looked so cautious at the Saints last year. Yes, they won the games with him, but he looked a different player to the guy he'd been previously. No, he seems fine. No problem at all. Happy to go out and run around and then just throw bombs down the field and make other players look really quite good.
But this coaching team is good. It's a good coaching team. You see what they're getting out of Bridgewater. You see what they're getting out of Mike Davis. You see what they're getting out of Robbie Anderson, even to an extent. DJ Moore, I think, was a good receiver anyway, but they're getting more out of him. They're getting more out of Curtis Samuel. It's not a good offensive line. They need help there still, but they're working really well with what they've got. The defense needs work, but all their draft capital last year was on defense. They didn't pick a single offensive player, so that's going to take time to gel. So I'm really, really, really impressed with what Matt Rule is doing in Carolina. I think this is a really interesting team to watch over the next couple of years. I think they're going to be a real force.
McCaffrey's just been reactivated off IR as well.
Yeah.
So once you put McCaffrey alongside Bridgewater, I think Teddy Bridgewater has really adjusted his game, and reinvented himself. And I think that time, with Breeze at the Saints has been invaluable to him. I'm sure he's watched how Breeze has changed throughout his career, and he's taken that on board, and he's definitely worked on different aspects of his skill set. And now he is a very good all-round quarterback. He can run for yards when he needs to, but he doesn't want to put himself at risk. He can throw an accurate ball. He's not going to be spectacular. He's not going to be Patrick Mahomes, but he is going to be at least average in this league for 5 years?
Yeah, probably.
And we've said it before. The team built around him is built for speed. Like, it's built for yards after the catch. Like, you look at those top three receivers in DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel. You pair that with Christian McCaffrey, who is a good receiver in himself. Those are players that you only have to throw the ball to them, on a slant or out wide on the flat or whatever, and they'll get the yards after the catch. Like, they'll get that because they're so quick, and that works to Bridgewater's benefit.
Very sweet moment when he ran off the pitch and sat on the quarterback's bench from the Saints.
There were a few moments where he was interacting with Sean Payton, and it was quite nice to watch.
Yeah, but I like Panthers this year because they seem to be a bit inconsistent. But I guess that's part of being a new coach because they'll beat the Cardinals quite handily, but then lose to the Bears. It's they're still very early in this.
I think it's interesting to watch because it's not just Christian McCaffrey's got the ball again. Did they hand it to him or did they just do a little dibble pass to him? Which one was it? Because he seems to just be charging along with 8 guys trailing behind him. So, they've had to think about football a little bit this year, which has been quite interesting to watch.
Well, let's move on to the Broncos 16, Chiefs 43. In the first half, the Chiefs had a rushing touchdown, a pick six, and a kickoff return, which is only the 4th time in the last 30 years.
Wasn't it that Patrick Mahomes left the field at one point and the Chiefs were 10-6 up and he came back on and they were 24-6 up?
They scored 14 points without him, yeah.
And I mean, to Gary's point earlier, this shows the strength of this team. Okay, Denver aren't the best team out there. They're a developing franchise. Drew Lock is young. The defense is missing a few parts, but it's mainly all young. But look, Kansas are scoring on every facet of the game. They're scoring on defense, they're scoring on offense, and they're scoring on special teams. And even when they did score on special teams, it wasn't like Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman running it back. It was what's his name, Pringle. Not Martin Pringle, is it? What's his name?
No, Martin Pringle played for Charlton.
Yeah, that's it. Brian Pringle?
It was Pringle, and it was a great return as well.
Yeah, it was.
Their special teams is always fairly good. There's not a particular weakness. I don't know, something still doesn't strike me as being quite right on the offense. I think Mahomes had 1 touchdown. I don't know. Maybe
it was because really we've got used fucking cold there
so much.
Yeah. It was very cold. It's like the 5th coldest game ever played in at Denver Stadium, and that's cold.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I see all the good things the Chiefs are doing. I just don't feel like this team is as good as the one we watched last year, and I couldn't tell you why. Right now, it doesn't look like it's as on fire every week as they did last year.
To use the different football analogy, I mean, they always say, like, if you're a team that's playing badly and you're winning, that's a sign. I mean, and I think the Chiefs are like that, and we'll come on to it later. And I think Bills had a game like that this week as well, where they've not played brilliantly, but they've still put 40 points up on the board.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs' defense ranks kind of 9th in the league, but for interceptions and turnovers, top 2 for both.
Yeah, their turnover ability is really good. It's the
score points. Score points.
Yeah, they do. I think they've got the most defensive touchdowns of any team since 2015. I believe that's right. Like, they do. They just give up a few too many yards, but you can change that. Is one of their star defensive players out for the season, Jones? Or did I imagine that?
No, I think you imagined that.
I may well have done.
Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Chandler Jones is out for the season in the Cardinals.
The Cardinals,
Jones and worried that it was him. Okay, fine.
Well, let's move on to the Chiefs' opponents next week, which could possibly be a massacre. It's the New York Jets, who took a 10-0 lead and lost 18-10, but didn't concede a touchdown. But
they only scored 4 yards of offense in the second half.
Yeah.
4
yards.
And they went 10-0 up on the day that Adam Gase gave up offensive play calling, by the way. Like, let's not spend time on this. The Bills played badly and won.
Yep.
The Jets are terrible and won't win. And Trevor Lawrence ought to stay in college if the Jets have got the number 1 pick, because it'll be a wasted career just like Darnold.
Second week in a row, six field goals in a single game.
Yeah.
As well.
I mean, Josh Allen looked like rookie Josh Allen at some point, didn't he? He, like this year, he's been praised for being a lot more accurate than he's ever been. But like on Sunday, he just looked like old Josh Allen. There's concerns there because he's not had the last couple of games haven't been great. But
do you think it's possible he's going to become one of these career-long streaky players where he goes like 6 games where he's unbelievable and then 6 games where you're like, okay, the defence needs to step up?
Yeah, maybe.
I think one thing we probably haven't spoke about much this year is matchups. And, whether it's fantasy or in real life, we all know that certain teams match up better against other teams. And I think we look at all sorts of stats and things like that. But sometimes just whether it's personnel, whether it's travelling, whether it's environment, whether it's weather conditions, travelling East Coast to West Coast, going from a hot place to a cold. I don't think we always talk a lot about that kind of stuff. And I think there's more variables as to why people play well or don't play well. So I think every, there's very rarely you get a team that goes 16-0, Quite often, one of the top seeds will go 13-3 or 12-4. So I would say that most quarterbacks in their NFL career could be described as streaky. I think it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, considering you weren't a big Josh Allen fan. That almost sounds like a defence there.
As well, for fantasy, someone who I imagine is going to be free in a lot of leagues, but might be worth a pickup, is Cole Beasley. He's getting targets every game.
100 yards a game.
100 yards, 11. He's getting over. If you consider that you're looking for about 15 points for a receiver to get an average score. He's getting that, and there's some people. You've got people who have gone big on Fulgham and Claypool, who this week got you, tits all.
Not bitters on. Fulgham did all right, didn't he? Got 10 points or whatever. But I think if you need Cole Beasley, you're probably in a 12-team league. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying, there are. But, I'm just saying.
Or Odell Beckham just got injured.
Exactly. But
Talk to me about a trade, Griff. Talk to me about a trade.
Maybe. I haven't got anything to give up now.
Now, if we weren't doing this on Skype and I could put in a sound effect, there would be the sound of a flaming bin, because we're moving on to the NFC East.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just looked at the first game and I'm remembering Daniel Jones falling over.
So Giants 21, Eagles 22, and the overriding thing we're all going to remember from this game is the Jones being tripped up at the 20-yard line.
It's right up there. It's right up there with the Todd Gurley incident. Sorry,
it was butt fumble, is what it is.
It's
right
it is.
There with butt fumble. Here's the unfortunate thing: is that the point they still went ahead and scored after this, and that it's a bit like I was saying earlier with the DK Metcalf play. That won't be remembered because the other team scored. The Giants scored, but that doesn't matter because Daniel Jones fell over. It's like you can pick and choose what you want out of these games, but ultimately he fell on his face with no one around him. I love the fact Patrick Mahomes has come out and said, I couldn't run 80 yards without falling over. And you think, yeah, you could. You just could.
I mean, as well, because all that was talked about after the game was Daniel Jones. And actually, he didn't have that bad a game.
No.
It's not his fault that Evan Ingram dropped the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, that should be the big.
And that is it. I think we are struggling because our receivers. We were much better this week with Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard just makes Jones a passing quarterback.
Well, he's your legitimate number one wide receiver. I really feel he is.
Yeah. I think he's the volume guy.
He's just not on the field enough.
He's always injured. The only time we ever win is Sterling with Sterling Shepard. And I do hear, they're trying to trade Golden Tate and Ingram. And I'm not sure. I think Ingram moving might be the best thing for both teams right now. For both parties.
It's not working at the Giants, is it?
It's just not working.
How has Ingram regressed so much? Because last year he had a decent season.
He's always injured. And I don't know, but there must be something, and it's just not working. And I think there's a talent there. I don't know if it's coaching or whatever, but the performance isn't meeting talent.
He's there with like Jordan Reed, isn't he? Because like Jordan Reed had like an amazing season, and he was just like concussed or injured. And Evan Ingram's exactly the same. He's very very similar type of player, and like on his day, he's probably like a top 5 tight end. But his day is too far.
He averages about
he's injured.
Averages about 600 yards a season.
Yeah, which is decent for a tight end. Like
a tight end who plays only half the games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. He's got no touchdowns this season, and he's only had 3 in each of the last 2 years.
Yeah, but
and that is a problem because what the Giants need is a dependable red zone weapon, and he should be it.
You could take any Giants offensive player and pull that stat out.
Yeah, exactly. What the Giants need is a quarterback that's not consistently losing the ball, either by interceptions or by dropping it.
Well, that's true as well. But good tight ends differentiate themselves in the red zone. Like that is where Gronk and Jimmy Graham and Greg Olsen, they've all done their best work, and Evan Ingram doesn't.
Good tight ends also distinguish themselves in that they're a safety blanket for a rookie young quarterback. But good tight ends are never going to get the football if he keeps dropping it. It's like 20 fumbles in his last 16 games.
Yeah, it's Daniel Jones.
Come on.
Not great.
And it's 16 interceptions as well. That's 36 turnovers in 16 games.
Jameis worthy.
It's definitely 32. 32 in it. Or no, 36.
Yeah.
20 in 16 games. That's ridiculous.
20 fumbles and 16 interceptions.
He's quite a big lad
games.
as well. I know he gets hit a lot, but he is quite a big lad, John.
Yeah. He's had to have he's done a lot of work. He's gone on a sort of McCaffrey-esque diet this off season, and he's come back a lot bigger this season. But the drops are less, but they're still happening.
Yeah.
The O-line isn't helping him.
No.
With the interceptions.
That's true. But then you look at Burrows in Cincinnati. He hasn't got a good O-line.
Well, yeah, but Burrows is better than Daniel Jones.
Well, that's just it. And there's, I'm not going to deny that either. But they're both top 10 pick quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, but one's better than the other.
So
I'm not going to. Daniel Jones was probably picked early. That's not going to be an arguable fact.
I think
today on Friday morning, Golden Tate. This is week 7. Golden Tate was the first bloke to catch a touchdown pass off Daniel Jones this season that's not called Slayton.
Yeah.
And that was his 4th.
Yeah.
4th touchdown pass this season. It's not good enough.
But I still hear so many Giants fans bang on about giving Daniel Jones another chance, or like continue to work with Daniel Jones. I was just like, give it up.
The thing is, there is a player in there. I just don't think. I just don't think he's good enough to be a starting quarterback. I don't think the talent is going to be there. I just think there's something in his confidence and personality that's just.
I think he's become very comparable to Mitch Trubisky. The difference, I would say, is Trubisky was playing on a team that was extremely talented, and Daniel Jones isn't. So it's like trying to evaluate Sam Darnold. Like, really, Sam Darnold, is he any good? We don't actually know. Daniel Jones, is he any good? You don't really know. You don't know.
I think the biggest difference between those two is like Sam Darnold he had a great scouting report. He came out of the draft with most teams kind of looking at him going, he'll be a good quarterback. You can't say the same for Daniel Jones. It was a shock that he was picked at number 6. Yeah. It was almost a shock that he was picked in the first round. Like,
how much stock can you put in the draft reports when we've had players like Russell Wilson get drafted where they've been drafted?
You can still put stock in it because they're both players that have gone on to teams that haven't helped them out at all, really. Like, they haven't. It's only been this year that Darnold has got a decent piece on the offensive line, but he's got no wide receivers. The talent around Daniel Jones, John, you're right, that is not good. So if other teams are looking to kind of take those quarterbacks on as a project, they're going to go back into the scouting reports from when they're in college and go, what did we think of him then? We know what he's done now. He's not been helped out. Is there still a player there who we think we can develop? And that's going to come back from the college scouting. Is there any, like Darnold's still only 22, 23? He's younger than Joe Burrows. So there is a lot of potential still there that in terms of kind of length of time you can work with him. And I think there's still a player there. I'd be more, if you're a Steelers or we were a Saints with an aging quarterback, even the Colts to an extent, with an aging quarterback who you're not going to have for maybe even next year, I would be looking at those two quarterbacks and saying, right, we could probably get them on a trade. Which one are you going to take? And I would take Darnold every day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. Darnold clearly looks more talented, but Daniel Jones last year, 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. That's pretty good for a rookie. This season, without Saquon, without many talented players around him, he's 5-7 touchdowns to interceptions. The fumble thing is clearly a personal issue. I don't think he's ever going to get over that. But once you start turning the ball over through the air as well, that's when you've got a problem because then you've got nowhere to go. You can't hold it and pass it. There's nothing left. But I just don't think the team is clever enough to evaluate him on. I really don't.
No, they're not. And I think Gettleman will be gone after this season. I think they'll keep Joe Judge. I think
Joe Judge needs to stay.
He needs to stay. He needs to be given a fair crack of the whip. But the team that Gettleman's put together is just not good enough. And it is another team that has been affected by COVID, but even so, it's not good enough. Anyway, let's move on to the proper dumpster fire.
Well, I was going to say the Wentz on the other side. Wentz looks streaky as hell still. He, at some points in the game, he looks like worse than his rookie year, and then other times, he reminds you of the bloke who almost won MVP, apart from an ACL injury. It's absolutely streaky, and I know it's partly because the offense around him is toss, and made up of second and third stringers. But yeah, just anyway, let's move on to the funny bit.
Didn't they lose Alshon Jeffrey again for another week?
Yeah.
And so it's not going to get any better there.
Football team 25. Cowboys.
Go on, football team.
3.
I was delighted.
Oh my
They
god,
are
this is
now-
so funny.
They are now within
They're level.
a game of the lead of the NFC East, and just the Cowboys. I mean, apparently Jerry has said McCarthy is safe. You know that he's convinced he's got his guy.
Wow.
My favourite thing today was, of course, the thing that Jamie sent in our WhatsApp group.
I've just the video. They showed the video on Sky of that while we were recording, and it was just hilarious. It's just
Mike Nolan has the conference call with Mike Nolan has been put on hold because he had Tabasco sauce on his finger and it got in his eye.
Amazing. I think he coordinates that defence like he can't see every week, so it makes sense.
Well, I think the Cowboys, they gave up in this game, and I think they might be giving up on the season because they've just traded
Everson
Griffin to the Lions.
Round pick
for a 6th round pick for nothing.
Conditional
basically.
6th round pick,
basically for nothing. Just are they trying to get some cap space to bring in another quarterback? I don't know, but there's something going on there. But I think I don't know. They're managing to fuck it right up.
I'll revert back to the conversation we had earlier about kind of the attitude that DK Metcalf showed when he chased down that bit of Baker on the interception, and I think it's something that Mike McCarthy kind of brought up in his press conference. Like Andy Dalton got knocked out of the game, concussed, really bad, horrible hit. Like John Bostic has to be. I mean, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a game or two suspension. If that happens on most football teams, and let's look at kind of Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph last year. If that happens to your quarterback, your team should be piling in to sort that out and have a fight and kind of got the quarterback back. Nothing happened. Like he got hit and everyone just kind of walked away. And that sums up the Cowboys this year. There is no passion anywhere on the team. Zeke Elliott's playing crap. The offensive line is knocked up, but it's playing crap. The defense is playing crap. The wide receivers are there, but they've lost Zach. It's like they've lost Dak. It's like the whole heart of the Cowboys has just been completely eradicated. And if Jerry Jones has got Mike McCarthy's back, all right, fair enough. But I just don't know how any owner can look at what's going on the field and go, something's not right here. And he's been a stable chair. He's been a stable kind of CEO, chairman in terms of keeping Jason Garrett for so long. But he can't look at that and go, this is working. Yeah, I can see signs of life here. I can't see anything here.
Jason Garrett must be sending him some proper funny text messages.
Oh man, I mean,
Jerry Jones is incapable of acknowledging that he gets anything wrong.
Yeah,
right. He cannot acknowledge that. So that's why he's saying Mike McCarthy's there. Mike McCarthy's gone at the end of the season. At the moment,
it has to be. Surely,
right?
He has to.
Is there much point getting rid of him right now when you haven't got your quarterback? You might not even have Dalton this week, who looks.
There isn't. There isn't. But don't come out and back him then. Don't come out and publicly say
he has to, doesn't he? He has to. He
doesn't.
What's the point of sinking him? There's nothing. If they have to start Ben DiNucci this week, who was Nate Peterman's backup in college, then this Cowboys team is just it's gonna be like watching the first week last season when the Dolphins played without any players. It's going to be absolutely awful.
I was looking at, I just did a quick search, available quarterback free agents, and it's not good. Drew Stanton.
They need to go and trade for Fitzmagic if they're not going to have Dalton. And even if they are going to have Dalton, they should still get Fitzmagic because he can move behind a non-existent O-line. He has proven that. And Dalton plays like Brady. He needs to stand there and pick passes, and he can't do it because there is no O-line.
Paxton Lynch is available.
Jerry wanted him.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, Yeah, okay, I get it. You do have to I guess you have to back your coach, but not. You're right. Like Mike McCarthy can't say everything on the field is wrong in Dallas at the moment, and the rumors coming out of the dressing room is that none of the players are responding to the way he coaches or the way his coaching team coaches, and there's too much talent on this team. You look at the Patriots, and it's like, okay, they're doing badly because they haven't got very many good players. You look at the Cowboys, it's like, you've got a lot of good players. You need to be better than 2-5. And that's all I'll say about that.
You've lost Dak and Tyron Smith.
Yeah.
It isn't, it wasn't a crisis until about halfway through the second half when suddenly it is now a crisis because Ben DiNucci came on and scored he got twice as many yards as Jarvis Landry this week.
He actually had a better rating than Andy Dalton, to be fair to him.
I'll tell you what, I think it shows how good a quarterback Dak is, though, and in terms of his leadership abilities. Like, you hear from all of the kind of journalists and the media and people around the team that he is a good leader. He talks very well as well. Ripping that heart out of the Cowboys has clearly been a big issue. We've seen, Burrows go into the Bengals and do a much better job there than Andy Dalton was doing. And Andy Dalton, I know he got his head taken off, but, he's not had much time to prove anything yet. But, I think sometimes, like, Dak hasn't been paid yet, and like, he might not get paid because of what's happened, not to the same extent, but he really has delivered, much better than anyone could ever expected after he was drafted for that team. He deserves to get paid, properly after all this.
The best advert for Dak
is what's going on now.
Is the last 2 weeks since he got injured.
When they've been outscored 63-13 in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Because at least when Dak was playing, they were competitive because they were able to score points.
Quickly, if the Cowboys get the number 1 pick, do they take Trevor Lawrence instead of paying Dak?
They trade it.
But you could build a whole team for the money you're going to have to pay Dak.
But you've got a known. Okay, Trevor Lawrence is probably I don't think they're going to get the number 1 pick anyway. But still, you've got a known entity in Dak Prescott, and no matter how good Trevor Lawrence is, it's like the draft is still a crapshoot. Right? Trevor Lawrence probably will be that quarterback that Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning kind of was. He might not be as good as that, but he probably will be a good quarterback in the NFL. But there have been plenty of others that haven't been. And in Dak, you've got a known quantity. You're exchanging a lottery ticket with a lottery win.
I think if Dak hits the open market this season, there is a huge number of quarterbacks looking over their shoulders. A huge number.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. Half the league would take Dak in a heartbeat, and just, Kirk Cousins. There goes, like, obviously if they could afford to drop him, Cousins would be gone. Rivers. There's just endless amounts, of teams he could end up at.
There's a lot of teams with suddenly a lot of cap space next year, including so you got the Colts, the Jags have the most, but the Pats, these are all teams that sort of need quarterbacks, so they can, you could get paid. Some of these teams probably won't have a chance of winning, but he makes every one of them better. Every single one. Yeah.
Can I, before we carry on into the ether, the football team, the switch to Kyle Allen looks to be the one. We ought to give him credit. Like, no one's saying he's the future of the franchise, but 15 of 25, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't give the ball away, working with Terry McLaurin really quite well. Working well enough that there was then space for Gibson to get his first 100-yard game, I think. It's not the perfect solution, but he's better than Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
Yep.
First time the football team have gone over 60 yards with rushing this season, and Gibson did that in the first quarter on 7 carries. He got 72 yards and a touchdown in the first quarter.
Yeah, that Dallas defense is terrible. I mean, the football team's defense is good. Like, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. There's a lot of draft capital on that defensive line. The backfield probably needs a bit of work, but when you've got those players like Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, they're great players. Deron Payne as well as the other one, and also kind of players like Montez Sweat as well. That's another first rounder. He got 2 sacks at the weekend.
For anyone who needs a laugh and a pick me up as well, just Google Chase Holcomb, because his hair is Tyler Eifert-esque. It's about 3 haircuts in one. It's wonderful.
All right.
Quickly, we should note that tight end Logan Thomas is actually playing really quite well for the football team. Just throwing it out there. He's scoring touchdowns on a team that doesn't score a lot, and they don't look short at tight end with him on the field. He's a really good blocker, solid player. Just somebody I felt deserved a mention.
No, he scored again today. I think so. Yeah. I mean, the football team aren't going to win a lot of games, so
but they might win this division.
But
yeah, you wouldn't rule that out, would you? Because
no,
everyone else is terrible.
Haven't they got a win over the Eagles as well?
Yeah, they beat the Eagles in week 1, and now they beat the Cowboys.
Ron Rivera is doing everything right, basically.
Yeah,
with the talent.
He's such a good appointment by the football team. It was exactly the right player they needed. So, right player, right coach.
So his name's Cole Holcomb, and as you can see, he has wonderful hair.
Oh, wow, that is a mullet and a half.
But yeah, anyway, should we move on? So week 7 in the books. Let's move to who our picks are for week 8. And I'm gonna go. The Chiefs play the Jets
again this week.
So no one allowed to pick that.
No one's allowed to pick Buccaneers against Giants either.
No. Eagles Cowboys. I mean, what a toilet bowl. Lovely stuff. I am going to say Niners beat the Hawks.
Do you want mine, John?
Yeah.
Lions to beat the Colts.
Oh, that's what I was going to take. Good shout.
That's why we're getting early.
Yeah, no, that's a
Jim?
good shout.
I feel like Chargers against Broncos is too easy. But I don't know. Because that Broncos defense can be quite feisty at times. But I'm going to go with the big one for the weekend, I think. I'm going to go Ravens over Steelers.
Oh, but I see the Steelers lose.
I thought you were going to take Bears over Saints, Jim, surely.
No, I'm not that stupid, mate.
I'm going to say more pain for the Patriots. They lose at the Bills.
Come on. Go harder.
No.
That 5-2 team win at home against the bad 2-4 team.
Yeah.
I bet you there's a lot of money on the Patriots rebounding, and I don't think so. I think it's 3 losses in a row.
I don't think there's that much money on that.
Well, you took all the other good games.
It does get harder.
I've got to take Dolphins over Rams, and I don't fancy that.
Raiders-Browns a tight game, isn't it?
Raiders-Browns, this could be an interesting game, yeah. I was looking at that. Oh my God! Eagles Cowboys is also the Sunday night game.
Yeah, prime time.
Poor America! Come on.
Oh no, you don't get comedy like that anymore. And I think, unfortunately, as well, the clocks in America change, so it goes back to 6 o'clock.
Boo.
Yes, it does. Boo.
So sadly, that's 1:20 in the morning.
That clock change is so good. That 1 week where we have 5 p.m. football and we can get to bed before midnight.
Yeah.
So old.
I mean, as well, I've got to stay up till 1:15 on Monday night to watch the Giants lose to the Buccaneers.
You don't have to. You can just wake up and.
I mean, yeah. It's fine. It's fine. I'll get Paul's pick by text, so we can judge him later.
Paul, who couldn't be bothered to be here again. Oh yeah, I see.
Let's just judge him now.
I've been doing I've been ranking our picks as Paul asked, and so far they are not very good. So when we've got a bit of more of example, I'll let us know. But for now, I will call this one to an end. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.